Of Chris Davis with us on the podcast. I met him in Tennessee while I was back there, and he is a hard money lender, transactional lender for a lot of people that are doing flips and buy and holds. And so I wanted to kind of get into how you got into that business and what you've done in real estate or in business in general, and kind of where you're looking to go from there. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So how did you get into the this like transactional based lending or hard money lending side of business?
Well, so I've been doing that for 2 years now. Before that, I was a flipper and built a small rental portfolio. I was actually living in Dana Point, California in 2016 and trying to break into real estate. Everywhere in the Orange County area is just crazy expensive. And so
Right.
I found it kind of daunting. And I didn't know anyone out there. And so I had come back for a football game, met up with my cousin and his friend, and we all were like, man, we should try flipping houses. And 2 weeks later, I had sold basically everything I owned and moved to Tennessee and just decided to full commit to this.
Oh,
Lived
wow.
with grandma. I was 26 years old, and I moved in with my grandmother again, which was amazing, by the way, except for my
Yes.
weight gain because she cooks way too well for a Southern old lady. Um, so we flipped a house. We were terrified. It went way better than we would have thought. We did have three of us though, and we kind of learned pretty quickly. It's hard to, unless you're doing a lot of volumes, hard to make real money with three partners flipping houses. And we kind of all had different, we were in different phases of life. And so I went out on my own to continue flipping. They went in other areas. And I had been doing that really up until I started the lending business. Again, very small rental portfolio. Um, and then yeah, I didn't really like it, to be honest with you, flipping houses. And I don't really like being a landlord. I'm not very good at it. Or it's
Why would you say that?
I think you've got to be, well, my personality is not very confrontational, and you better have the ability to be up in someone's face if you're flipping
Mm,
houses, because contractors, they are a different breed, and they will
right.
they will run all over you if you're not careful. And was I had a habit of getting run over, and so I was still successful in it, but it caused me to be out of my comfort zone and my natural kind of who I am more than I wanted. So it was kind of a stressful thing for me. And I was looking for to do something else. I was exploring literally any avenue. I was exploring a totally different career path, getting a job, an 8 to 5, whatever it was. We had a family partner who does very large high-end mobile home, and high-end RV park developments around the country. And he's a good friend, and he's like, Chris, why don't you just come work for me? Which was an amazing opportunity. I did not deserve the opportunity he gave me, but he did. And so I just went out there pretty much the next week and followed him around for 3 months, learned a ton. I really liked the job and considered staying there. He wanted me to stay there, but he also kind of picked up that I had too much of my family entrepreneurial blood in me, and that he basically told me to figure it out and go do it. He basically told me to leave and go figure something out. And so I went to my grandfather and I said, hey, I really think there's an opportunity in the lending space. I don't see anyone really local to the East Tennessee area that is doing this. Everyone's kind of an out of state player. They don't really
Right.
know the community, and people want local. And he agreed to let me test it. And so we tested it with a few people we knew. And after 6 or 7 months, the family office, my grandfather, he runs the family office, we'll call it the family office that manages the assets, saw that I was doing well. I was passionate about it, and not, they decided to take a little more risk and a little more risk. And then we launched about 15 months ago publicly as to be Knoxville and East Tennessee's premier private lender
Awesome.
go to. So yeah, that's how I got here today.
Amazing. And so it looks like you have a lot of people that or are surrounded by that can bring a lot of opportunity, right? Just because you were mentioning, right, with the RV park, the person that you were working with for a few months. And so how do you think that someone can basically attract those types of people to their life, or get surrounded by those people where they're also providing value to them, right? I don't know.
I think I understand what you're asking here. There's no getting around it. I mean, I was born with some level of a silver spoon, and but as a result of that, like, it hasn't been a perfect journey for me. I mean, I've been a black sheep at times, and you'll find in these families people are always transitioning in and out of different phases of life, and I have surrounded myself at different phases of life with people that have not been beneficial to me. Uh,
Mm,
and fortunately, I mean, I can see the phase when I left that, and I can see that when I started surrounding myself with like-minded people, people who wanted to be successful and healthy and happy and go on a journey of getting better and better, you just can't help but become that. You're gonna become whatever you're around the most. I mean, that really is true. You've heard a lot of people say that, I'm sure. It's not smoke. I mean, it's true.
right.
You have no choice, really. It's more of a survival mechanism, probably. You know,
Probably, I would
yeah,
say so.
yeah,
And so, since you touched kind of on your family, I mean, a lot of us, right, get negative beliefs about money, because our parents, just, didn't figure it out, or just, were raised in um, poverty or something, right? Like my parents are, it's a miracle for them to even be um like middle class, right? Because of how they were raised in another country. What are some of the beliefs or the ways that maybe your grandfather or your father um started teaching you about money, so that you could maybe have a different belief system about money than maybe other people would?
well, man, I could talk a lot about this. My
I
grandfather
want
was
to hear it all.
dirt. He was dirt poor in a tiny little podunk town in Tennessee. They were farmers, sharecroppers, um, and I mean, he was really, really poor, and so he still um, has that mentality. And I'm sure it's really that whole generation is, they
Right.
struggle to spend money. Our generation is like, let's just buy everything, go everywhere, and document it. But he had some crazy tough times, and so um, he's really instilled a level of, like, go out and earn it on your own. It has not been a perfect journey within our family, and I think every family, no matter what level of wealth they have, can understands that families are difficult,
Right.
and more money, more problems is a real saying in some ways, and it hasn't been a perfect transition because, and I think my grandfather would admit it, like, it's no one really knows how to transition that wealth properly. Most times it goes very bad, and you get your spoiled trust fund kid.
Right.
Usually it's my generation, the third generation, that
That's what I
ruins
was gonna
everything.
that's what I was gonna say, because I was like, you're third generation. I've like read books about, families, and it's like the third generation, like all the wealth is gone by then, right?
Shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in three generations is a good saying, and yeah, it's very true as well. It's just really hard to transfer those values from one generation and then get it to another generation. And my generation will have an enormous challenge to replicate what our parents did for us. I give so much credit to the second generation in our family. There's there's 14 of us. I think that's right. There's probably more than that, but there's maybe 17 of us between my parents and our generation. And all my two uncles, my mom and my aunt are incredible people. Like, well, everyone loves them in the community. They've raised good kids. They care so much about all of us. And that is really the foundation that has to be. They have to have good values, and they have to pass it down. Now, we've been on a journey as a family for 5 years now of really trying to structure the value part, because we're kind of just lucky to this point that everyone is normal and productive and good and happy. Honestly, statistically, we're beating the odds. To transition that, there's been, especially in the last 15 years, tons of books and material about how to do that. I still think even if you do everything right, it's very still hard to do. So we've been on a journey of kind of seeing where that's at, and I can go forever about that. So I don't know how deep you want to go, but
Well, I'm just curious because like I will talk to some family members and we're all striving to be successful, and then we think, okay, well, like how are we going to raise our kids so that they aren't, like you said, like just spoiled, right? And think that money just grows off trees. And so that's why I'm curious to see like what, I guess, how you were taught. So because you guys are beating the odds already, to try to transfer wealth into the next generation.
well, there's a lot of strategies, and again, we could go on for days. Our situation is unique without getting into too much, where we were we have the name around town, but my grandfather really never gave anyone much outside of education, which is very important. I mean, he paid for education, which is arguably the most important thing you could do. So we never had to deal with like large windfalls of money that could have screwed us up. And I would, I mean, I'm only 32, so I have so much to learn on the subject. My instinct right now is it'd be a really bad idea to just give someone a lot of money
Right.
without some structure or some guidance. On the other end of the spectrum, all the experts will say like it's a tension between control and letting people make mistakes and learn, and so it's a fine balance. Generally, what we're learning is that it's best to have ownership within the group, and have a governmental structure where everyone feels like they have created this structure. There's a value system that we as a family have agreed to, and we've written it out, and it's kind of the guide for everything. And it's not that, hey, you've got to do this to get this, but it's like, look, you're getting this, but like these are what we want it to be used for. This is the values that we as a family have agreed upon, and it can act as pretty good guide rails. So that's the journey we're on. Time will tell if it's a good step. Yeah.
Well, it sounds a lot like building a business, right? Like having company values, mission statement, a vision statement. It kind of sounds a lot like that, and running something that's a lot more organized or more intentional than most families really put thought into, I guess I would say. So that's really what it sounds like to me. Do you have a vision or something of where you want, the next, I don't know, 10, 20 or so years of your life to go as far as business and real estate goes?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely have the financial goals like everyone has, but I've structured every year. I like to make goals. I'm a total goal guy, and just love doing it. It's like my favorite thing to do at the end of the year. And right now, I kind of tier my kind of life goals. Faith in God is like number one to me. So that's number one. Two is health. And then three, I have friends and family, kind of three and four, and then career and community. So six phases that I try to focus on every year in that order. God's the most important. Health is the most important thing, and I've been very bad at that in my life. But without that, like no amount of money or wealth or anything you're not gonna be able to enjoy it. So health has got to be number very top priority, number two for me. And then friends and family. Friends and family are very important to me. My family is very important to me. I have a great group of friends. I've always had groups of friends that I stay in touch with. I just think it's very important. Well, at least for me, it's very important for my mental well-being and just to have good, close friends. So, and then behind that purposely is career, money and making money, and I have all those goals and whatnot, but everything above it is more important.
100%.
And then communities on there. You and I are in our earning phase of life, right? we're in our learning and earning phases of life. This is a direct quote from my grandfather. He always says, you learn, you earn, and then you return. And so eventually I would really like to be able to return, time and or money, depending on what I'm blessed with and how it all goes down the road. But you got to kind of do it in that order generally.
100%. Yeah. And as far as learning, what have you learned as far as like business, wealth creation, and just in your process of just being like a lender to other people? Have there been some key like lessons that you've learned that maybe could transfer over onto, other people in their learning phase?
I think that if it's too good to be true, it's likely too good to be true is a general way of looking at things. That I've been burned on some things that it's like I want to get there so fast. So you see something like, man, that I can get there so fast if I do that. How could we lose? And you can convince yourself that of all sorts of things. But a slow burn to success and consistency and taking daily actions. I'm a huge Georgia Bulldog fan, and our coach is Kirby Smart, who came from the greatest of all time, Nick Saban. And Nick Saban hounds the process. You've got to love the daily tasks, the process. Fall in love with that more than the reward, and your life will be great. And so, I have some daily tasks I do every day for all phases of my life. And I just know that if I focus on them, I will get to the goal probably quicker than I think. So I really think that, find a process that works, break it down, reverse engineer it, and trust it, and don't get sidetracked by the shiny things over here that, might be able to make you a bunch of money. It could work, but man, I've had a lot of people tell me it won't work, and I've experienced it now. So yeah, I'm sure you can probably attest to that.
Yeah, for sure. And also with investments, right? Like where to invest your money, which I know a lot of people, like I can remember with like crypto, right? It was like, it keeps growing, like, and then, now it's like no one talks about crypto now, but, so things like that where there is like high risk, but where you should invest your money. Have you seen, when looking at a deal, typically what are some metrics that you like to stay under to make sure that you're going to get a return as a lender?
As a lender, so we stay below 65% of the after repair value. And that is a specific number for us. We know that if something goes sideways, if I make you a loan and then you run off, to Europe and say, "Au revoir, Chris," or whatever the saying is, it's going to take us 30% equity no matter what. Like day one, we know that that's gone essentially. So that's our number one metric. We do up to 65% of the after repair value. And then the most important thing for us is we want you to have skin in the game on the purchase price. You'll see people advertising 100% financing. They're like the wind. They come and go. Most of the time people advertise 100% financing. When you're at the closing table, they're never actually there, right? They just that's a marketing ploy. And the ones that are, they just don't last in the business long. We look at our relationship as a partnership. We're the equity. We're the debt and you're the equity. And so if you've got $30,000 in a project, your odds of walking away from the project and not trying to figure out a solution are much, much lower than if I give you 100%. I mean, you have no reason not to just walk away if things go bad. So those are the two biggest things. We're at 20% down today. We'll do a little lower depending on deals and how many deals we've done with people, but skin in the game, and then 65% of the after repair value are our number one metrics that we look for in a good loan.
Nice. Yeah. And what are the types of loans that you like doing the most? Is it like flips or buy and holds? I know you've done transactional lending, I believe, as well. So, is there a reason, I don't know if one's just more profitable or it's just less risk to get your money back quicker?
Yeah. Well, so when you start, I'm sure you've dealt with this. Like when you start something new, like you're trying to pay bills, you will look at any type of deal possible. So it's interesting to think about like where we've morphed into, because I would look at everything 2 years ago. I would say most of our deals are standard fix and flip loans. short-term 9-month term loans. People want purchase money or they want purchase and construction money. We have had quite a bit of influx on straight bridge lending where people thought that they could BRRR out of it and get the refinance on the BRRRR strategy. Are you familiar with that?
Yep.
They could get the refinance. Well, the banks have just stopped lending, period, on that aspect especially. And so people have come to us asking for, hey, can you give us a year? We're more than happy to do that. Yeah, we'll write you a year. It's an interest-only loan. It's not perfect. It's not your end goal. It's more expensive than they want to pay, but it helps them bridge the gap until they can figure out how to get the financing. So we've had a lot of those lately. We've been experimenting. Just like the refinances, no one's lending on new construction right now. It's always investment real estate that the banks get rid of first, and it's not because they think it's like that much more risky. It's because they're worried about the regulators. If the regulators come in and lower their loan to values and appraisals, they can get shut down real easily. And so they just stop doing, especially new construction, because construction is known to be the most risky type of lending. And so we're testing a new construction product right now as well. And there's a lot of people been asking me for that. I don't know if I'll end up liking it because it's a little different, and you got to stay focused in what you know, in my opinion, and slowly branch out. So yeah.
And how have you made these relationships, like just going to meetups and things like that, of like people that you like working with?
Yes, a lot of boots on the ground. We do some paid marketing. My biggest thing is referrals now. Built the business on customer service. We looked at a lot of what the institutional lenders were doing. We looked at what the other hard money lenders were doing. We decided we wanted to be average with rates and average with origination fees. We don't want to be low. We don't want to be high. We don't want that to be the reason someone leaves us or comes to us. What we want it to be is that we can move really fast. They know what they're getting, and they know that we'll answer the phone and we will work through it with them, that we're here, we're a real person, I'm the decision maker, and just kill it with customer service. That was always the belief, and if we do that, we'll get plenty of loan volume. And it's been true to this point. And I'm a one-man show. I say we all the time, but I really am a one-man show right now. I don't have any employees. That'll have to change quickly, but you know, it's a lot of work. This is not a passive business. Real estate is a passive business. You can buy and hold, other than a few emails if you have a property manager, you know, approving stuff. That's passive. There's absolutely nothing passive about my business. My loans turn over very fast, and I've got to constantly be finding new loans. But it's a very cool business.
So would you say it's kind of like flipping or wholesaling, where you're always looking like for the next loan, I guess, to lend instead of the next deal, I guess to sell?
Exactly. If I stopped doing everything today, in 9 months I would have no loan portfolio anymore. So I've got to constantly be prospecting and building, and we're expanding. We've been in Knoxville, greater Knoxville area, Chattanooga, Tri-Cities. We'll be into Nashville and like pretty much any southern state we like. We like Florida, we like Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina. Tend to be pretty business friendly, lending friendly states. And just more than that, the demographics of people moving to the South are outstanding. Knoxville was like kind of a hidden gem, I thought, for a while, but the cat's out of the bag on that. And everyone from California and New York's moving here now. And I think that's true for a lot of cities here in the South. It's underappreciated compared to most other markets in the United States.
Yeah, I agree. When I was in Knoxville, I'm like, this is amazing. And talking with my analyst, she's like, yeah, but the population growth. I'm like, no, I've been there. It's a growing city for sure.
Yeah.
But so another thing I wanted to ask has to do with like cultivating friendships, since you mentioned that that's like one of your top 3 or 4 things that you look at. How do you cultivate friendships? Is this something like from when you were a kid, like that you still have the same friends, or like what do you look for to make sure that these relationships still are like fulfilling, and like you're giving value, they're giving value to you, and you're choosing the right friends, right? Because you said before that maybe you were with people that, you know, really weren't helping you or beneficial. So how do you choose your friends now?
Well, I don't think I actively like say, you know, I'm gonna try to be friends with that person. It tends to happen naturally if you know where you're headed, you'll end up being in places that are similar, and then you'll find yourself around those people. One of the more natural qualities that I have is friendships. That's been relatively easy for me. I don't know why. I don't think I'm particularly cool. Pretty lame at times, honestly. But I've never had a problem just reaching out to people and organizing things. I've never been like worried that someone doesn't like me. In fact, most of the time I just assume everyone likes me, even if it's not true. Like that's just
That's a
the
good
fact
assumption.
with why not, right? Like it'll be easy to tell if they don't. And you know,
Right.
most people want to be liked. And so yeah, I feel like if I assume everyone likes me, I kind of like everyone. So there's very few people I've ever met in my life that I was like, man, I don't want to hang out with that person. Like I don't think I'm very much like my dad in that way. He's very just kind of like trusting and non-assuming, and we just kind of get along with everyone, and that's paid off really, really well. And um, yeah, friendships take time though. Like the older I'm getting, I'm realizing that like it's not as easy, you know, you're not just hanging out bored looking for something to do like you were in
Right.
college, right? Now it's very planned and much more proactive. You know, like, hey, I haven't seen this friend. In fact, I actually have a spreadsheet now for everyone, but I have friends on there and I keep track of the last time I talked to them because I've lived in Miami, LA, and Scottsdale, Arizona now. And so I've got a lot of groups of friends that I like to, you know, maintain contact with. And I would not be able to do it. I can't remember much, period. So I have to write everything down. But yeah, you know, it takes effort and being proactive. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, you know, about, you know, being intentional.
Yeah, I think it's being intentional. Because as you get older, there's just like more responsibilities, there's just more on your plate. And so it's not an afterthought if you really are having, you know, strong friendships. What brought you to like Scottsdale, Miami? You've lived a little bit of everywhere. I always thought you just went and were living in Tennessee for most of your life, but I guess I was wrong.
No, I was born here when I was 14. My dad was the chief pilot for the company here, and for like 25 years, and that's how I met my mom. And then the company sold in 2003 or four. I was heading into high school, starting high school, and they loved Scottsdale, so we moved out there. I loved it out there. I'm a big golfer, great place to play golf. So I went to high school and college in Scottsdale and out at Arizona State University. Transferred to Grand Canyon University, which is in Phoenix, not the Grand Canyon, where I got a
Mm,
theology degree and was planning on becoming a minister and pastor. And then long story, but I had a really good mentor that was like, you're obviously entrepreneurial. Like, why don't you just follow that? Like, God made you that way. Just trust it and see where it leads. And then from there, at some point during college, my brother lived in Miami. He was starting a company called Tons of Fun Tours and Rentals in Miami, which is like Jeep tours. And I went down there to help him start that. So I've had about a year and a half down in Miami.
mm.
And then after college, lived in California, Orange County, Southern California, for a year and a half, 2 years, and loved it. Couldn't afford it. It's a very expensive place. So if I had a limited amount of money, I'd live in Laguna Beach, California.
Mm.
But I moved back here because I just have so much family and so much opportunity, and it was just a no-brainer. Like I can be around family, and if I'm, you know, doing the right things on my end, the opportunity there is immense. So.
Amazing. And what kind of like as far as family and stuff like that with investments, right? I know you um mentioned to me that you like owned a building and you were like renting those out. Are you still looking for like commercial buildings and things like that as far as investment criteria real estate? instead of building a rental portfolio, since you said that wasn't really like very interesting or like your strong point. What do you look for as far as investments aside from obviously the lending part?
Well, it's most about bandwidth right now. Like I only have so much bandwidth, and yeah, I got into this business at a good time. Luckily, I had no idea, but banks have stopped lending, so my phone's off the hook right now. I don't have any more time to even look at anything right now. I love multifamily. Who doesn't love multifamily, right? That's like the golden goose of investments. So we'll always consider stuff like that. Well, I'm always looking for commercial deals to finance. My brother and I own a commercial building here in town with like 6 different tenants in it, and that's been a really great partnership. He's the smartest person I've ever met, my brother, and so I've kind of been riding his coattails. And he's my older brother. I'm one of 4 boys, and so he's always living like almost a father figure, and I could tell I'm somewhat of like a son figure to him because he's 13 years older than me. Um, but we're always looking. He's in that space, or he has been. He runs our family office now. Um, so we're always looking. Now that being said, we're actually considering selling that building right now. It's kind of interesting. We have one tenant in there that's like worth most of the building, and it's a AAA tenant, and you can find people like hedge funds that'll buy that. So we're thinking about selling that. It would de-risk the entire building. Wouldn't have any debt on the remaining 3 tenants. And I just point that out to say, like 2 years ago, I would have never sold anything. And I was like, I don't sell anything. You get a property, never sell it. I still believe that, but you just never know how things will change. There's so many things that I've said throughout my life that I would never do that I'm doing now. So
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always heard from much smarter people than me, like Ed Milet, like if someone doesn't change their mind about something, it's like how much have they grown, right, in their mindset of things. So, I think it's a good indication. As far as core values probably don't really change, but different thinking or different beliefs about certain things
yeah,
sometimes do.
well, you're just constantly gathering new information, right? And with new information, you're able to make better and better decisions and different decisions. And yeah.
Yeah, so what made you change your decision from like you should always hold? Because that's kind of something I've tried to do, at least myself. I think that if you can buy something and you can hold it as forever if you can. But what changed your mind to, maybe we should sell this. It's a good opportunity to sell.
Um, I'm very passionate about my business right now. And that was when I was going through that transition I talked about. I read a really good book by Tim Keller, who unfortunately just died.
Yeah.
Grew up in New York, and it was a book written to entrepreneurs, like how to be a Christian entrepreneur, because it's a very untalked about thing. And one of the things in there was like you need to figure out what you're passionate about, and like you need to commit to it. And um, I'm so passionate about my business. I want to pour everything I make. I mean, right now I'm living like as cheaply as I've ever lived in my life because I'm pouring all my money back into the business growth. And so the reason we're considering selling that building is really because it's an opportunity for me to de-risk a phase of my life and kind of take something off my plate that takes some time so I can be focused on my business.
I see. So
And
it's
that
really
makes sense.
it's a priority thing, right? Where your business can grow probably faster than maybe the profits from the commercial building, right?
In some ways, yes. Yes is the answer to that, but it is also nice to de-risk. Commercial's way different. You have an anchor tenant, retail. Retail's already scary as it is, especially maybe heading into recession. You have your anchor tenant, and if anchor tenants go out, it can be pretty tough in retail. I mean, you can be in
Right.
trouble quickly. So it'll be about what a broker had approached us. It's actually not something we ever considered, but a broker is like, hey, I represent a company that buys these specific tenants. And so he's like, I think I can get you X price. And we said, well, if you can get that, we'll sell it.
Nice. Nice.
We'll
Um, We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, and so in growing your business, what do you think are the next steps that you're looking to do or take on? Like maybe growing employees and things like that. I'm just not sure what the next phase is, what it looks like for your business, if you're just going to stay strictly lending or.
It's going to be hiring an employee. That'll be the next phase of the business. I know the job description's clear. It's just a matter of me pulling the trigger, and that's pretty scary. I've never hired an employee before. I've never managed an employee before. Um, I know that I'm pretty darn controlling, so I'm wondering about my ability. It'll be a transition for me to delegate, and finding someone that I can give up trust to get things done. And I'm sure that'll just be a process, but that'll be the next step in the business. I've got to do it. I'm just underwater all the time right now, and that's the next step of the business. The current phase of life I am is totally about health right now, getting to my ideal weight because I've been overweight for a long time, exercising, and we're working with, a doctor who really hits all phases of life, spiritual, mental, physical, and really just trying to make sure that I'm prepared for whatever, the future looks like on a health wise. So I mentioned that because hiring an employee is going to be a key part of that. It's not healthy, at least for me, to be working, 12-hour days like I'm doing like right now all the time. Even though I like it, I think I like it too much. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
it'll help your I think your mental health too, to get some things off your plate so you can focus on some of your other priorities.
for sure, for sure. And I'm sure my girlfriend of a long time will certainly love me having an employee. Yeah.
100%. Kira will be happy.
And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and so I'm just curious as to how you balance all the things out. I mean, I guess it's having good coaches and mentors by your side, but anything else other than like reading books, some of the things that you've mentioned, right, is what I'm capturing. Um, because when you keep mentioning like the next phase of life, right? So in the next phase of life, how do you guide yourself or get some wisdom so that you know what decisions to make. Well, when one, things don't work out the way you thought, and two, when things where you're not sure, you're not clear what it is that you should do.
Well, I'll use kind of like a flying analogy. A lot of times when you're flying, you run through worst case scenarios, engine out scenarios. Like, and you do that early on because if you can handle that, you can handle anything. And so along those lines, I think goal planning is really important. Not just like I do yearly goals like most people do, 5-year goals, but also I have like my life goals thing, and it's like, it encompasses values and like general trajectory of where I want things to go. And that can move and evolve, and it will. But that is sort of the guide rails. And then having a system where you make sure you actually look at it, right, consistently to make sure because it's easy to make goals and then not look at them for a year. And I'm very guilty of that. I read a great book called Getting Things Done. I can't remember who it's by, but my brother made me read it early on, and it's all about like managing tasks and emails and stuff. And he has what he calls his weekly review, and every Sunday you have a checklist of reviewing all these things. He calls it like your external database because he's all about getting everything out of your head and onto an external database so you can be creative and function. You review that external database, and one of my things is the goals. Most of the time I don't want to do it on Sundays, but it's there and I have to check it off the list. So yeah, that's one of them, like making sure that I'm not deviating too far from the path. But I just, like you mentioned it, I have incredible people around me. I have great friends, great family. I've got a girlfriend now who really, really loves me and would certainly keep me on track, and that's super helpful as well.
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
amazing for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
um, and then, just to kind of see with your business, I am curious as to growing it, is it mainly just marketing and sales so more people know, or finding more referrals? Because I do get like your emails and stuff. So I know the marketing is working, and it's doing well. But with the hiring an employee, is this just someone that can kind of take on, um, like the requests or the inquiries or look through some of the deal flow, or, kind of what is the next phase with the employee?
They'll be handling mostly administrative tasks and like coordinating transactions, things that take a lot of time for me to do. I mean, they take a ton of time. So I can focus more on growing the business with marketing, in fielding the calls. I will always do, in my opinion, I'll always do the underwriting, which is evaluating the deal. I highly doubt that I will ever outsource that part, because I trust myself and I'm on the hook for all this money here that I'm lending out. So the office isn't just giving me this money saying, here, Chris, go nuts. I pay him a handsome return and I'm on the hook. And that's a good way they've structured that for me. And so it'll be, talking to insurance companies, talking to title companies, following up with the bar, like, hey, we're on track. Can you get me this information, packaging it, and then I'll jump back in and reviewing it. That'll certainly be what their role is. Eventually, it's possible that I'll have, depending on how far the expansion goes outside of where I'm at, we'll have some originators, people that get paid to find deals in other markets. But that's down the road. And that all goes back to the lifestyle aspect. I'm still not sure how far I want to grow this. There's growing it means, I guess, more money, but is more money necessarily what I want? I don't know yet.
Well, what do you love about it? Because working 12 hours a day, I mean, there's definitely things, it must be something that you enjoy. So what do you love about the business or business in general?
I love it. It's very people centered. I get to talk to people all day long, and I get to help. I am helping people in some ways. It's expensive money, so I'm not going to say that I'm some like saving grace for them, but we're doing things others won't, and we are helping people get opportunities they just wouldn't have elsewhere. And so it's nice to provide a service that people want. It's nice to sell a product that I believe in. I've sold things I haven't believed in. I've sold a flip before that I was like, man, I didn't really do a good job on that flip, and I didn't really like that feeling. I feel like our product is great. Like it's transparent. People, they're not getting blindsided with fees. This is what it is, and they know that I'm gonna work my butt off to make sure everything happens on the timeline they need it, and that if they have a problem, they can call me, and I'll do everything in my power to work through it with them. It's nice to be able to sell that product. So I really like that aspect of it. It's nice making money too. I do like that, but more so for the lifestyle, security. Those are things that I'm not going to lie, I don't enjoy. I do enjoy about it. I just don't know to what end. I mean, the science says that over $250,000 a year, there's not much difference in happiness, and it actually diminishes and almost declines. And so, as we approach that, and I get a new sense of what that's like, I have no idea. I may just decide I don't want to loan money anywhere besides East Tennessee. It's plenty for me and my family, and we like the life that we live. Or maybe I'll have the itch that a lot of people do get, and some people get, to be, a big whatever, big star out there. So, yeah.
Why do you think that it actually, lowers, after 250,000, what people make, people's happiness? I'm just curious about that. I have heard that before.
I think it's mostly workload. You have to work to make money, period. There eventually you might get to a place where it's more passive in nature, but you're gonna have to work your butt off to get to that point. So I'm certain that that's it. I mean, I think that number is probably where like doctors and lawyers, and all these high paying jobs, they kind of cap out for hours worked. And so to get above that, you're going to have to expand, and you're going to have to start managing other people. You're going to have to take on more risk. And so stress is just a huge part of it. Stress is a huge part of owning a business and running a business. I'm sure you know that. Like, it is really stressful, and you are taking risk.
Yeah.
And so I just don't think it's clear that like what do you do with extra $100,000? Are you able to take 4 or 5 more trips a year and spend more time with family? Well, that may be worth it. But if it's just accruing and you're not actually doing anything, it's not benefiting you, your family, friends, the community, it's just probably not worth it most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, well, I just wanted to get your input on it since, you can see it from different points of view and people that are doing that, how it affects them. So,
Yeah. And let
so
me let me preface that by saying I have no idea what I'm talking about. There's the asterisk mark.
some idea, I would say. 1 second here. Okay. So, but yeah, I wanted to ask your opinion on that and see what you thought about people's happiness and how that works. Because I do have always heard, as you say it, more money, more problems. But a lot of times we're not sure if that's really what is going on. I assume lawsuits and things like that obviously come into the mix, but stress is, I think, a really big part, and your workload, as you had mentioned. So
Yeah.
if anybody else wanted to get in touch with you, are very curious about your lending, and things like that, what would be the best way to reach out? And if there's, specific products that you'd like to talk about, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, you can go to our website, approachlending.com, www.approachlending.com, Facebook at Approach Lending, Instagram, Approach Lending. You can always just call me. I don't know if I should give out my phone number, but 480-287-4201. That's generally what people do. They just reach out to me via my website or call me directly. If you go through the website, I'm going to call you directly. So that's just how it works. And our products are pretty simple. There's nothing special. We help finance investment properties, residential and commercial. We can be more creative than a bank, and we work really fast. Underwriting's very simple. Can't promise you I can do it, but we look at everything and see if we can.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Chris. It was a pleasure having you. Pleasure getting to know you. And hopefully this sends a lot of deals your way.
Hey, I appreciate it. Let me know if I can ever do anything for you.
Of course. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.